John, a lot's happened over these past few days with baseball and everything, and then Cal Raleigh winning the home run derby. What do you make of just this season of Cal, where it seems like every time there's an accomplishment or an accolade, he is racking up more and more to add to what has been a historic season for him?
He really is, Mike. And if there were any lingering fans out there across the U.S. who did not know yet who the Big Dumper is and why he is so popular, this was an infomercial for the last few days. Certainly the Home Run Derby title was remarkable to witness and not a surprise, again, when you think about just how prodigious his power hitting has been all season long. And then I thought it was a wonderful detail last night that he and Tarek Skubal were talking with Joe Davis and John Smoltz during the course of the game, and Cal's reaction and his competitiveness, even in a game that didn't necessarily count in the standings, I think just really conveyed for everybody why he is so great. And the three of us at different times with Bob as well, we've all talked about the importance of Cal as a game caller. And I think you saw that come through. What's going on in his mind when he's calling pitches for the Mariners' excellent starting staff and their bullpen, of course, as well. And I just thought that was a really unique insight. The pride of Seattle University, Tarek Skubal on the mound there with Cal behind the plate. It was just a really unique story, and who knows? Maybe Tarek and Cal will be on opposite sides of an encounter sometime in the postseason. But I just thought that the entire baseball world got the treat of watching Cal Raleigh for multiple days in a row, and they're not going to soon forget it. And I think, too, does it have a bearing on the MVP conversation? I'll say that it shouldn't, but if there was any lingering question about Cal's notoriety or how well-known he is to the baseball fan, I think a lot of that was put to rest over the last few days.
Yeah, and can't say enough about the home run derby and having his little brother and his dad involved. I mean, everybody's going to love that, I think. And also, it just seemed I couldn't really tell when he was mic'd up with Skubal, like, was he talking to him or was he saying it just seemed like he was like very competitive at that point and he didn't really want to talk, and it looked like he was like all business, even though it's an all-star game, right? I mean, that's what it looked like to me anyway.
No, I think you're exactly right, Dave. I had the same thought that his care came through and was transmitted. And I thought that was important, that this wasn't something he was just out there goofing around on a Tuesday night. This is the All-Star game, and he was really proud to be there behind the plate. And I thought, too, and you know this from being an athlete yourself, athletes usually have one setting, and they can be their own personality off the field, but when they step in there and they're competing, they're themselves on the field. And I think that we got that insight into who Cal is when he's calling a game, and it doesn't matter if it's game 162 for the Mariners trying to get into the postseason or if it's the All-Star game on a Tuesday night. He's going to be invested. And I thought that you saw vividly Cal Raleigh's investment in every single pitch that every American League pitcher threw to him last night. And I think the same joy in competition, and however barely he made it out of the first round in the home run derby, certainly he made it count in the end, and I just think it was a really special display. And to me, the ability to switch right to left, I just thought is just, to me, that is incredible to watch. I will never be able to get past just what a sports miracle that is, to be a switch hitter at that level and to be able to hit the ball darn near 500 feet right-handed, then flip around and do the same thing left-handed. That's not normal. And I think it's important that we don't take that for granted, because it is not normal at all. It's, in fact, very extraordinary. And to then be able to pair that with that type of receiving skill, the investment, I think the way in which he's regarded as a great teammate is something that stands out as well. I just thought it was a real showcase for not just Cal the player, but Cal the person. And you're right, Dave, the home run derby experience with his dad throwing, his brother behind the plate, you just saw the joy for the entire family. And it's my belief, Dave and Mike, that you can't fake that. You can't fake that type of joy, especially not on the big stage. And that's a family that clearly has a very strong relationship, that loves each other. And for all of us that grew up with with a brother or with brothers and a dad, and we got to love baseball that way. I've got a brother, I've got a dad, and that was a pretty cool experience to watch the way that unfolded there on Monday night.
JP, when we got to the actual All-Star game, we saw for the first time on the national stage the ABS system, and I know it was in some spring training ballparks, but on the national stage at the forefront with everyone watching, it seemed seamless. It seemed pretty smooth, the process when those challenges just took place. Do you think this solidified that it's going to come to baseball in the regular season soon, maybe even next year?
Yes, I do. And the exact timing, of course, is left to be negotiated between MLB and the union, and how all the timings and rollouts get determined. We, of course, understand there's a larger CBA negotiation that's probably starting relatively soon, with the current CBA set to expire after 2026. And so there are those legalities and the negotiation, but in terms of how it looks and feels on the field, they've got it right. And I think it's important to point this out, that MLB rolling it out during the All-Star game was really good, and honestly a bit of marketing genius on their part, because when you think about it, the fear all along, or at least the fear for a lot of people, was that the reviews would either change the way that umpires work, make the whole situation accusatory, and automate something that probably shouldn't be completely automated. We do like the human element of the game. And I think that the way they did it, you almost could see Dan Iasonia, who's a great umpire and a wonderful gentleman behind the plate and has good relationships with people. I think he was the home plate umpire for a reason, I would say. And so the way in which it all unfolded was very professional and entertaining. And therefore, whenever this gets rolled out in the future and it happens in a big game, the first memory of baseball fans seeing this on a big stage was a positive one, and one that did not seem to be obstructing our enjoyment of the game, and in fact, in some ways, enhanced it. It was fun to see, wow, how good is the eye? Was that hitter able to perceive that it barely clipped the bottom of the zone, or didn't in that case, whatever it was, between a pitcher's challenger, a catcher, or a hitter? And I just think it was a fun aspect of the game. And from that standpoint, our first association of it will be one of positivity, and I think that will go a long way towards this becoming a more routine part of the game. Remember, Mike and Dave, once upon a time, we did not have replay at all. And then when they first started, it was only replay for home runs. And then we added more and more replays as time went on. And we have slowly been walking down this road to where it no longer feels like a huge leap. And that's to the credit of MLB and the union, in fact, for gradually modifying the game in a way that last night, it was just a great product. That was a great baseball game with a fun, unexpected end that I would say a vast majority of sports fans found to be entertaining, and at some level, that's the whole point of why we're here.
Yeah, I'm also, I didn't notice this until today, JP, but they had their own uniforms on. Mike is very entertained by this. I just didn't notice. I'm not a uniform guy, so I didn't really. I liked that part of it. I think it was my favorite All-Star game, even like including like a Pro Bowl or an NHL All-Star game or anything. I think just the whole experience, and then at the end, it was a bit of a surprise. I got to admit, wasn't exactly aware of exactly what was going to go on, but I thought the whole thing just played out great, and I really like. I don't know if there's a way to implement that into the home run derby, but I love the concept of there's a limited number of swings, because it kind of takes it. I felt like in the home run derby that maybe a little bit too much on the pitcher. And, you saw like Cal's dad even, hit him one time. But, instead of swings and a timer, I just there was something very clutch about what Schwarber did. And, it sort of exhibited that. What do you am I crazy? And I promise it won't involve more waiting. Okay?
There you go. I knew that was part of the questioner, Dave. And here's how I'm going to answer it. Once upon a time, the Derby rules were outs, swings to outs, and there was no timer. And basically the decision was made some number of years ago that was starting to slow down a bit too much, and that a little more efficient Derby was to the good. Now, I do think there could be a hybrid result at the end where perhaps the first round is timed and then maybe the subsequent rounds are not, and they're based on swings to allow, to your point, the drama to build, maybe to allow for a greater appreciation of every home run. Every swing was dramatic, and I think it was perfect because the outcome of a game was riding on it. There were only 3 players on both sides. We were all just so taken by the moment and how surprising it was. And so I think a lot of the drama and the waiting was welcome. It was part of the enjoyment of the spectacle. I do think if it's a 3-hour competition and it's standalone and it's just the Derby and that's what it is, sometimes that can drag a little bit. And that I think, I remember I went to a couple Derbies in the previous rules and felt as though they were a little bit too long. And the way they do it now, I think, is it's well packaged. It's a very good television show, which is exactly what it's supposed to be. And I think that it's a really good made-for-TV product. And in the ballpark as well, I think it's a very enjoyable experience. The thing about the end of last night's game that I thought was remarkable was you had the players out there on the field watching. Skubal is just in his shirt and in slacks, okay? So that was unique. I had a bit of a moment where I said, oh my gosh, let's hope that no one gets hit, because when you think about it, there's no batting cage around them. There's no protection. I was a little bit worried about that for a quick moment. The one thing I was worried about, too, or just thinking about, if there had been a controversial fan reaching over, was there actually an umpire out there keeping an eye on things? There was even one moment where the bullpen gate was open. There was an usher standing there during the competition. I said, wait a minute, that's supposed to be closed. There were just a whole lot of things that we had never seen before. There was a Fox cameraman, I don't know if you noticed this, behind the catcher filming from that angle, which I'm sure was one of the more remarkable shots you'd ever see, but he wasn't exactly protected either. So it was just a really unique thing of saying, you know what? We're going to throw caution to the wind, say a little prayer, and get out there and put on a great show. And they did. And Kyle Schwarber, what can you say? 3 swings, 3 homers. That is so hard to do. And John Smoltz, I love the way that John pointed that out on the broadcast. Like, it's not supposed to be this easy. I don't care how good you are normally at baseline hitting home runs in BP. BP is usually casually watched by a few hundred people at 5 o'clock, and you're just relaxing, listening to some music, and hit the ball to the ballpark. Last night was not that. Last night was very, very different. There was, and I think John made a very good point too. There's no shell over you, so you're just exposed to the world, and it's just you and a catcher, and that's it. And it was just so. It was almost like we're gonna just draw up the rules in the sandlot and go out there and play, and most homers wins. It was just it was a beautiful. I know it wasn't spontaneous in terms of the planning. MLB had been planning that contingency for a long time, but it felt spontaneous. And I want to give credit to Joe Davis and John Smoltz too for building in the suspense a bit. They weren't exactly telling everyone in the 8th inning about what was coming after the 9th. There was a little bit of a tease from Joe Davis that I think just worked out really well, and I thought overall it was really well done by Fox, and the Hank Aaron tribute was amazing. Goosebumps. The photo of Billy Aaron looking at the beautiful tribute to her late husband was just, I don't even have words. I mean, I met Hank Aaron once, and I felt like I was meeting a king, and I shook his hand, and I was a kid again when I met him. And I just, those moments, those memories came back last night for me to think about a man of just such majesty, such a regal person. And I just thought that was a beautiful way to celebrate him.
Well, John, as we move past the All-Star game now and into this very consequential second part of the season that for the Mariners starts with a series against the Astros, this team kind of continues to just be an unknown, right? They finished the first half by getting swept by the Yankees and then putting up 35 runs and sweeping the Tigers. So what do you take away from that past series against the Tigers for the Mariners, and what do you think holds true moving into the second part of the season?
Well, Mike, I jotted down that score before this conversation started. 35-14 on aggregate. My Tigers-loving family members are still trying to recover from that over the weekend.
Classic
They're not quite sure what
Seahawks-Lions
happened.
game. Yeah.
It was the Seahawks-Lions game. I felt like that was probably in the Russell Wilson era, long before the Lions had the defense they have now, was about that score. But I thought you saw a Rosarena come into form. Probably the Mariners would have preferred to just keep playing, to be honest with you. As great as it was to see Cal win the Derby on Monday, the Mariners, based on the way the weekend went, probably would have wanted to play a game on Monday, because Rosarena the last couple weeks has been good. Polanco's been good. Raleigh's been Raleigh. I think that you look at Canzone has taken a step forward. He's been really good. J.P. Crawford's been good. So the offense is really perked up. I still think that they need one more bat. Whether it's Eugenio Suarez, whether it's Ryan McMahon, there are some different possibilities out there. And I also believe the bullpen will be an area where they look to add one more piece. And whether that is in talking with a team that has an infielder to move, hypothetically the Rockies with McMahon, then maybe you say, hey, how about a Jake Bird? When you look at different situations like that, you consider the Diamondbacks with Suarez and with Kevin Ginkel. Those are the possibilities that I think are out there that could come to fruition in the coming weeks. But the way the Mariners ended the first half, I think, was on a very hopeful note for the lineup. Maybe they're finally getting some rhythm. Obviously, the way that the Thursday game went against the Yankees was a real difficult moment. And I think if they make the playoffs, and certainly I don't want to lose track too much of what a sort of remarkable 36 hours that was. You lose a game that you should win 100 times out of 100 when Wu pitches that well.
Yeah.
And you lose that game, and then you have a night getaway. You come to Detroit. You're facing a rested Tigers team that was already home, and they've got Scooble on the mound, and you find a way to win that game. I just think that was, if they make the playoffs, that Friday night in Detroit is going to be the game that they point to and say that's where our character was tested and we came out and emerged victorious. And again, who knows? You never know the butterfly effect, but I wonder if what an absolute gut punch that Thursday game was part of the reason why they had that plus 21 run differential against the Tigers over the weekend. There was a certain resolve there where I'm sure the veterans of the team rally the troops a little bit to make sure that they didn't let it get away, and that was about as impressive of a final 3 games of the first half as you could ever imagine having. The Mariners, with that, became the first team to take a 3-game sweep from the Tigers at Comerica Park all season long. The only other team that swept the Tigers in a 3-game series was the Dodgers to begin the year 3 in a row in L.A. That's it. Twice swept in the whole first half by the Tigers in a 3-game series. Mariners, Dodgers. That tells you something. This has been a really good baseball team in Detroit all season long, and the Mariners, they dominated them. I mean, certainly the Sunday game could have gone either way, but in the end it was a dominant weekend for the Mariners, and I think that gives them a huge amount of confidence going into what I expect is going to be a really interesting series to start the second half against the Houston Astros.
We can't wait as well. I mean, it feels like we have just a lot of time until Friday, but it's going to be here before we know it. That second part of the season, the big Astros series. And John, we always appreciate the time that you give with us, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of questions as that trade deadline gets ever closer over these next couple of weeks.
Looking forward to it, my friends. It is the best time of year.